when we're talking about like tired HMOs, landlords that,
Hmm.
if we're only doing cosmetic, predominantly, painting and decorating, that sort of thing, and then furnishing it to make it look nice.
Yeah.
What about those spaces like kitchens and bathrooms and stuff like that? If it's still got quite a tired suite in there,
Yeah.
then that's gonna stick out like a sore thumb when you've done it up nicely.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is where the negotiation comes in, like one of our best properties, it was in quite a bad condition when we first took it on. And the landlord had an offer from another rent-to-rent company before us. But they wanted him to spend, I think it's around £40,000 on the refurbishment just to bring it up
Wow.
to their standard, how they
Yeah.
wanted it to be perfect, before they
Right.
started. Um, and then that's obviously probably why he called me after seeing my letter and thought, let me try this company. And I sort of put a proposal to him where it was like, rather than you spending 40 grand up front, let's try and work together and see if, maybe we start with paying for the empty rooms because he had 5 empty rooms at the time out of 10. And once he knew that he was getting that guaranteed income, he felt more obliged to like spend a bit more on the property himself as we went along.
Right.
So it had like electric heaters throughout, and he put like we got our plumber to come and do like a whole new radiator system and put 20 new radiators in the house for him. I think that cost him around 6 grand for the whole job, but he didn't mind paying that because he'd already had a couple months rent off of us for the empty rooms, and then we just worked together rather than being so rigid in our
Yeah.
approach. I
Yeah.
think I think that's where you can really thrive with the tired properties is being a bit flexible
I suppose.
with
Yeah.
your offer,
Yeah.
because asking someone to spend that much money up front can be a bit intimidating to landlords. Whereas if they get more of like a personal service from someone like yourselves who's offering to start making their money, that's
Hmm.
mainly what they want. Um, and then you can go back and forth and say, well, we feel like it would be a better product if you did this, this, and this. And if you did do this, then we could pay you this much. If you have to position it to them and show them that their dream outcome,
Yeah. You got to
basically,
paint the picture. Yeah.
yeah, you got to paint a picture. And that obviously takes a bit of going back and forth. But again, this is why we like to write the letters and get them sent out and then try and get the landlord on the phone, work out all the pain points, write them all
Mm.
down, and then either pitch to them there or try and meet them at the property or have a coffee with them somewhere. And just go back and forth really. Like that deal that I'm mentioning, that took a couple months to get it over the line. So quite a few meetings, hashing out what we need from him, what he'd like from us. But I think when I think back now, he was just trying to work me out as much as I was trying to work him out. He wanted to know that I was trustworthy and a good guy as well.
Yeah. 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 And I suppose if you're talking to him about doing things to the property and bringing it to a standard that, you can both be happy with, that shows that you actually
Yeah.
give a crap and that you're not just trying to get him to
Yeah,
sign up on the dotted
yeah,
line and then, start taking money and
yeah. I think I
forget.
think that's the key part that a lot of people miss is it is about business is about people end of the day, isn't it?
Of course.
And they have to the landlords if they like you, it's going to help, right? It's going to help. It's going to go a long way. So the more open you can be to being flexible and thinking more about helping them solve their problem rather than like lining your own pockets and trying to get the deal signed and done. Um, I think that goes a long way with building that trust and that's how you get that good guaranteed rent price locked in. That's works well for yourself as well.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's the whole thing about two ears, one mouth, isn't it?
Yeah,
Speak, let them talk and
literally, literally. Like I had the landlord on the phone the other day, and I just, I had all these, I had the questions up that I've got in the course for what to ask, and he just took over the phone call. I didn't get to ask hardly any of those questions. He was just, how much can you give me? He was that type of landlord, very money motivated.
right.
Um, and since then we haven't ended up taking on that deal. I was going to make him an offer the other day, but it turns out he's got two other offers for way more than what we'd be looking to offer.
Yeah,
There's no margin there. Um, so we let him go ahead with those and just said, look, if it falls out of bed, then we'll happily have a chat again and see if we can do something. But sometimes you just have to hold your ground,
yeah, yeah, yeah. If it doesn't
offer
make
your price.
sense,
If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. You've still been polite. He still knows of us now. And if it doesn't work out for whatever reason, we'll probably be the first people that he calls. And that's happened quite a few times over the years where we've held our ground. That's our offer. Walked away from it, and then they've come back 3 months' time saying, "Oh, this company's hasn't worked out. They promised too much. They overpromised. Couldn't deliver on it. Are you still open to? Is your offer still on the table?" Basically.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. I
that's
think
why it's a game of offers. You need to make them, even if you don't get the property. The more you make, the more it comes round.
yeah, you got to keep having the conversations.
Yeah, yeah, basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. Okay. Um, what else have we got? The commercial agreements, the contracts that you've got in the updated course,
Yeah.
is there is there any major amendments that need to be made to them that you're aware of?
No, not that I'm aware of. I mean, like I said on our last call, if you wanted to add things, you could, like,
Like clauses.
clauses, anything that you wanted to add, if you wanted to be even more clear with exactly what you'd be offering, maybe like what you're responsible for, maybe with the maintenance, things like that, you could add things in there.
Yeah,
We like to say sort of maybe 5% of what we're paying. So
yeah, I
if we're,
saw that.
yeah,
Yeah.
so you can put extra things in there, but generally speaking, that's the exact contract that we've used for that property that I'm speaking about, the 10-bed one. Um, and I just feel like it's a bit more of a stronger contract than the company let agreements. And because we put a bit of our own money into that one, it just felt like I wanted to get it under a lease contract. It felt a bit more long-standing and solid.
Yeah. So yeah, in the updated course, I read there was like there's the management contract, which is the
Mhm.
one. Um, so you get the one from the letting agent.
Yeah,
You get the one which it said which was for shorter agreements. So
yeah,
if it was like between just up to 1 and 2 years,
company
um,
let,
yeah, and then
yeah,
if it's 3 years plus, then you use the main one.
commercial lease, yeah, yeah. Especially if you're putting your own money in as well, to a certain extent. Like I think that 10-bed we spent around 6 grand on it, mainly painting and cosmetic stuff, but still, it adds up.
Mm,
And you want to make sure you've got everything locked in so that you're going to get your money back at least.
yeah, 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 yeah. That was one of the questions, but which got answered, which is what you said last time, which was to use the minimum like 12-month break clause,
Yeah,
so that gives you enough time to get your money out.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. You can't really see much, not much changes after just 6 months. You need a bit of time to let the dust settle and there will be a bit of fine tuning. Your first couple months might not be the best months, but then you'll make up for it later on down the line once you do get everything right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've got a question here about lease options. If you build that into the contract
Yeah.
to then potentially um, put an offer
Right.
in it, yeah, and buy the property.
Yeah. I mean, you could do that. I think it's a difficult pitch, the lease option,
Yeah,
my opinion. Yeah. I think
yeah,
they've got to be in a real bad situation to go for that. If you think about it as a landlord yourself, if someone come
yeah.
to you and said, I want to buy it for less than, it's worth sort of thing in such and such amount of
X
time.
amount of years, yeah.
Yeah. You'd have to
I'll offer
be,
you today's market price
yeah. I
in
see. Yeah.
5 years' time or
I
whatever.
I've never done one myself. I know it gets spoken about a lot on social media because it seems like a quick way to make some money, I guess. But I mean, the landlord's got to be in a really bad situation for them to agree to that. I think
In terms of being in debt or whatever, in
negative
arrears or
equity, yeah, debt collectors at the door.
yeah,
Really really motivated to go for that, and they are out there. But I just think if you get if you offer someone like that a good rent to rent deal over 3 to 5 years, then you're probably going to be in pole position to buy it anyway. Like
yeah,
some of
yeah,
our ones, we've got those relationships with the landlords now where we've said, look, when you are looking to sell, just let us know. Obviously
you'd
for
be
the business
interested.
but we'd
Yeah.
also like to buy it as well. And like you've got that relationship, so they have that synergy with you, and they kind of would rather you buy it than someone random.
Yeah, because you've already built up the trust. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and they do have an emotional attachment to it as much as they pretend they don't. They would rather see someone who they know take it over from them.
yeah, 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 not for sure. Um, in terms of client avatars, like types of um, tenants,
Hmm.
what do you typically prefer? Which clientele do you typically go for? Is it students, international students, nurses, professionals?
So we like to go for mainly professionals. We don't have any students. Um, we don't mind like people that have graduated. So like young professionals, I'd say 23, 24 that have just come out of uni and who are going into like a placement. We've got some of those types of tenants, but we don't really take on actual students who are actually studying at that exact time.
Right. Okay.
Um, we just like working professionals, mainly contractors, people that are going to be trustworthy, reliable. Nurses are always good. You know that we haven't had any late payments from nurses ever. We've got a couple doctors in some of the houses at the moment. Just those types of solid jobs, IT professionals,
Yeah.
someone where you
Yeah.
can see the incomes coming in,
Mm.
and you can see that they can afford it as well. And
Yeah.
if they have
Makes sense.
a job that has a bit of integrity to it, they're probably going to be a better tenant, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah. Because it spoke about in the course as well about international students,
Hmm.
who typically, will pay 6 months to a year up front. Have you ever looked into that
Yeah,
in
I
terms
mean,
of?
we've had offers from that type of tenant before. We haven't got any of those at the moment, but sometimes like their parents will be guarantors for them as well, which can be quite good, having that because that guarantees the income even if they can't make it. But again, we just prefer to target the actual people who are working at that current moment in time, and we can see like a contract of employment from them. It just makes the business run a bit smoother and gives us a bit more peace of mind, really. We don't really want to be chasing mum and dad for the money, even though, I'm sure we'd get it off of them eventually. We'd rather it just be from their income.
Directly, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
or
just
or or even better from their employer.
right.
Because
Yeah,
that's what makes it even smoother if it comes from their boss. Because
right.
then it's not even like a personal income decision. It's just more of a business decision.
Yeah,
There's a budget allocated for them. It has to get spent somewhere. So hopefully it can get spent with you.
yeah. It's one less, removing one less potential hurdle, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. You want it to be as efficient as possible.
Makes sense. Um, what else have we got? On the HMO register, so when
Hmm.
doing the campaign to reach out to landlords,
Hmm.
um, you can see on the registers where it's either an individual or a company.
Hmm.
Do you advise reaching out to all of them regardless, or just the individuals or the
All of
companies?
them. Yeah, because sometimes it would be like a landlord who's just bought the property as a company.
Yeah,
So it's the same as an individual, really, isn't it? So they might have just wrapped it up in a different wrapper, but it's basically the same thing.
yeah,
Even it might look like an estate agent sometimes, but that just might be the landlord's name that they've chosen for the company. So I'd
for the
still
name.
say, yeah, I'd still say approach them. Um, I'm not sure if there's a part included in the course where there's the data analyst part where you can helps you extract the data from the register. If that hasn't been uploaded yet, it will be uploaded this week. But we
Right.
basically pay someone on Fiverr to go and do that side of things because it can be a bit fiddly to get the exact names in a spreadsheet format for Stamp to set up
Yeah,
the actual campaign.
yeah, I need to do that. Yeah, and yeah, one of the yeah, I had to do a bit of fiddling around and use a bit of AI trickery to pull out the data
Yeah.
from because they sent it me as although yeah, they sent it me as a PDF,
Right. Yeah, that's right.
and they just wouldn't provide. They said if you want it as in a Word document or Excel, you're gonna have to pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, they said this is the standard stuff that we provide. If you want it tailored, then you've got
Yeah.
to pay extra.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just did what I could to pull out the information and then
Hmm.
put it into an Excel. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's the next action that I need to do as well is to download there's a template, isn't there, from
Yeah.
Stamp that I
That's
use
right.
to
Yeah.
put it into the relevant format.
Yeah.
So yeah, I need to do that. Get onto that.
I think you should definitely do that because that'll give you some warm leads. And to be honest, I think that you guys, you've done enough in terms of like education wise. I feel like you know enough about rent to rent to start actually pitching it now.
Yeah,
Like a lot of the other mentees, they're still in the education phase where they're still learning about it and learning the concept. But I feel like you understand the concept. So I feel like you should move on to that next stage now, which is actually like implementing and putting some offers in and negotiating and seeing what can come from it, basically.
yeah. And as you say, now is a good time just to to get onto it because there's
Yeah.
been turnarounds and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. Even like going into January, I know we're winding down for Christmas now, but like I said, I sent those letters out a couple of weeks ago. I've had quite a few responses from them. So I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be the same for yourselves. And even if you were to arrange to meet the landlords in the new year, they might have some tenants that are leaving over the next few weeks. It's no harm in having that conversation now, that warm conversation, and let them stew over the fact that they could have a company guaranteeing them the rent for the next year or so, depending on how things go, rather than them having to keep changing these tenants over and responding to these letters and going to estate agents. It's hassle for them.
Yeah, yeah. They
So
just want the fruits. They just want the fruits of their labor. They don't want to have to get into the nitty gritty of
yeah,
it.
yeah, and it depends where they are, right? But like the ones that are in the best condition, that are perfect and ready to be rented, that type of person is probably going to have loads of people queuing up to rent it. Versus the person who has sort of the tired property who needs a bit of updating, um, who might not have necessarily the capital in their pocket to do that updating. They might have equity in the house, but not necessarily the funds to spend a few grand on just sprucing and tidying it up a bit.
Yeah,
And that person is the ideal customer really, because that's where you can get that locked in lower rent in theory.
yeah. So I guess you find that out. So if we were doing the landlord outreach campaign
Yeah,
through the letters,
yeah,
um, you only really find that out once you've spoken to them and got an
yeah.
understanding and asked questions. So what's your property like?
Literally,
What's the condition?
Literally, yeah. That's when you open up the PDF for the questions and you just ask them as many questions as possible and just let them speak. Hopefully, they should be telling you, I've got this one not paying, I've got arrears with this room, I've got, void periods. This part of the property needs a bit of maintenance. It should be a bit of a situation that they need some help with.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
just make notes as they're talking, make notes, and then you won't offer them anything on the phone. You just say, okay, well, it'd be great to come and have a look, and then you'd either go yourself or you could send someone using Viewber or one of
yeah.
those platforms to view it. But ultimately, it will be probably yourself closing with them face to face.
Yeah, we've used Viewer and stuff like that before, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
Didn't exactly go as smooth as we
No,
would liked,
no.
even though we briefed them and told them what we were looking for them to
Yeah.
do. They turned up and didn't have the foggiest. Um, so yeah, we used Viewer on when we were doing the deal sourcing side of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. I mean, you have to be really thorough with that side because obviously you're buying or you're packaging it for someone else, aren't you? So you need to be really thorough. But with the rent to rent stuff, as long as like most of the things are working, the basics, the water, the heating, you probably would view it yourself at
Yeah,
some point after that if you're going to commit to taking it on, right? But it's
yeah,
just getting that initial, speed is really important with rent to rent, right? So like send the letters out, you get some warm leads, you get them on the phone, and then you try and get someone round to have a look just because it just shows intent. And if it is as good as the landlord's saying it is, and it's that perfect sort of property for you, then maybe that's when you then go and have a look yourself and try and meet the landlord and actually pitch to them face to face.
yeah. I think we would be doing that like 99.9% of the time. I don't think
No,
we would bother using
using
Viewer.
anybody.
No.
Uh,
Well, it's
we,
just, yeah, if it's local to you, then great.
yeah,
Go and do
Yeah,
it. If you can, you've got the time, fantastic.
yeah.
yeah. I mean, looking at the areas around us,
Hmm.
um, we've got a lot to go at. I think,
Yeah.
uh, with Salford area, Greater Manchester, Wigan,
Yeah.
Bolton, all those types of areas. They're all within
Hmm.
minutes of us, basically.
Yeah.
Uh, so we'll start casting the net out, further and further,
Hmm.
to give us the best chance of
Yeah.
getting as many deals as we can.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's wise. And obviously using the portals like your Rightmove, Zooplas, Open Rents, just use them as practice, like go and have a look at places, speak to people, tell them what you're doing, leave them a business card, let them know your service, and it will come back round, the more people you speak to. You never know, agents can be motivated to work with companies like yourselves if they understand the model and they
Yeah,
understand that they could make money from you paying them an introduction fee and the landlord also paying them a fee. And especially with those more tired properties, they don't really want to waste weeks and weeks and time and energy on resources of doing viewings and taking photos when they could just call you up and you come and rent it off of them, and they get to make their little 10% in between. They get to
Yeah.
manage it, and happy days, you know.
So they look after, so on paper, they still have the management of the property. So they'll be taking their fixed fee off the
Landlord,
overall.
yeah, depending on what the agreement is. If they've got just a tenant find only agreement with the landlord, then they might just take a fee from you, maybe £300 or something like that. And then the landlord will probably give them a 1 month's rent is quite normal with estate agents. So they could
Yeah,
make 1,500, £2,000 and then walk away from it,
yeah,
put you two together, and that's easy money for them, isn't it?
yeah. When when it's in that situation for the tenant find,
Hmm.
would you still do the actual finding of the tenant yourself, sourcing the tenant yourself, or would you leave that to them?
No, we'd still do that.
Yeah, but just they would basically get a fee for doing nothing then.
They basically find you. You're the tenant for the
Yeah,
landlord, basically. So
right.
that's how they see it. And we kind of like that because then they're out of the picture then, and then it's just us and the
Yeah.
HMO landlord.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
it works well for us, and we're happy with that because we can't. It's more meat on the bone, isn't it?
and if it's a long-term contract, then they're not having
Yeah, it's a
to fill
win-win.
hands. Yeah,
Yeah, because if it's not in the best condition, they don't want to waste loads of time trying to market it and rent it to like individuals because individuals are going to walk in there and think, well, it needs a bit of love and care put into it.
yeah,
And they're just sort everyone's wasting time then at that point, aren't they? Whereas they could just call you, get their fee and move on, or sit in between and get their 10% management fee for doing like the maintenance here and there when things go wrong and just instructing contractors to come and fix things on behalf of
yeah.
the landlord, basically.
Cool. Last couple ones. Referral fees for successful leads.
Hmm.
Um, what would you? What's a typical fee for something like that? As an example,
Hmm.
if I'm working with a mortgage broker
Yeah.
who works with loads of landlords,
Yeah.
if he was to pass us leads, what would be a reasonable referral fee, do you think, for
Well,
something like that?
anywhere between, I guess, that 300 price point to 1 month's rent, you could do anywhere in between there, really. 500 would be more than fair, I'd say,
Yeah,
for a referral. Obviously, it has to go through and you actually have to
yeah,
sign a contract.
yeah, a successful lead. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
mean, you want to incentivize people, right? So, I mean, like 500 might be a bit more tasty than £300 at this point in the market.
mm, right,
Um, yeah, I'd say £500 probably fair for that.
okay, because that's a potential avenue that
Yeah,
we
it's
think we might be able to leverage.
Yeah, go
Uh,
for it.
like you say, you just need to make it, just need to incentivize them enough.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. What software do you use for getting tenants and landlords to sign contracts?
We just use the contracts that we have in the course, so just a very basic, simply doc.
Sorry, to get them digitally signed is what I meant.
Oh, I think we use DocuSign, something like that. I'll have to double check with that one and I'll WhatsApp it over to you, but I think it's called DocuSign, something like
Yeah,
that. You can just sign
I'm
it on
used
their phone.
yeah, I'm used to using that one, DocuSign at work and stuff, but it tends to be a bit more pricier. But I just thought, yeah, I'd ask a question, see if you had another one up your sleeve.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if I do, I'll fire it over to you for sure, but I think that's the one we use for now.
Cool. Okay. Um, what do you recommend then as next steps? And I'm guessing it's
Get on the
just to
phone, get on the phone, get some viewings done, tell everyone what you do, get some letters sent out, and try and view as many properties as possible. So the next time I speak to you, you have some viewings that you've done and hopefully some conversations and maybe even some landlords that have told you no
yeah,
would be good.
it's part of the process, isn't it?
Part of
Yeah,
the game, yeah.
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 Okay.